Coming to you live for the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app, good Wednesday morning. Some more breaking news after we get off the air yesterday as Joe Douglas, former Jets general manager, let go by Woody Johnson and the Jets. We knew this was probably going to happen at the end of the year, hearing that last press conference and knowing what Woody was doing as far as firing the coach without talking to Joe Douglas and some of those things. I mean, it was over for him. They just decided to end it now during the bye week so they can get started on this GM search. It's sad to see another guy go. We developed a relationship with Joe Douglas. It was amazing how quickly this thing has fallen apart. It was April 2023 at White Eagle Hall, New Jersey, our first ever Boomer and Gio Live, where Joe Douglas came out, said Aaron Rodgers is going to be here before the trade had been completed, and then me and Joe dumped ranch dressing on Peter Schwartz. About a year and a half later, he's gone. Aaron Rodgers will be gone at the end of the year. Rob Saleh's gone, and the whole thing is blown up, and the Jets are the laughingstock of the NFL once again. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning there, G. Never happy when you see good guys lose jobs. That's for sure. And a guy that's tried to put into place what the owner wanted, and that was a winning football team. And, 6 weeks ago, Woody said this was the best roster he's ever had. So, and Joe is the guy that put it together. So, here we go again. I mean, I feel like we've been at the starting line with a number of these teams over and over and over again. And now the Jets have got to try to find the right people to run the organization. I mean, it's the reality of the business, unfortunately, and a lot of these guys understand that. But you never want to be let go. You never want to be fired. You never want to be benched because it is so public and so many people are talking about the different decisions you made, why you made them, were they successful, did you pick the right guy, didn't you pick the right guy? I mean, and that's just part of, I think, the reality of the business and what these guys sign up for. And we knew that it was going to be just a matter of time with Joe Douglas, simply because you can't have a lame duck GM, especially if the owner is going to invoke himself in a lot of the decision-making that you're responsible for. And that's who's playing, who's not playing, what contracts are getting done, what contracts can't get done. I mean, so, Woody is basically rampaging right now, as I would say. And, he just got his buddy elected president of the United States. I don't know if he's going to be here, next year. I don't know if he'll get another ambassadorship or not. I would assume he'll get something simply because he was so, financially and personally invested in the election of President-elect Trump. So maybe this is his way of making sure that he has control over what's going on with his franchise moving forward. So. The interesting thing is I went back and I watched the tape of Aaron Rodgers. I just wanted to see what's going on. Why wasn't he throwing the ball down the field? And if he was throwing the ball down the field, why wasn't he hitting anybody? And I think I always saw really one pass that went over 20 yards, and it was behind the intended receiver.
Yeah, we looked at the dispersion yesterday, and nothing was down the field.
I'm telling you right now, he's injured. He's 100% injured. And I want to say it's on his left leg, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's a hamstring.
Okay.
You could just tell by the way everything's coming off of his back foot. You could tell by the way that it looks like he's trying to protect his left leg. I'm sure we're going to hear about it eventually. But if I had to guess, I would say I don't know if it's a knee. I don't know if it's a hamstring. But to me, it kind of looks like it's a hamstring just by the way he's moving around and not going through like the proper mechanics. And I know that he's always been a different kind of guy when he's throwing, and he does throw off his back foot quite a bit, and that's kind of like the way that he has played over the course of his career. I don't see him putting a lot of pressure on that front leg. I really don't. So that tells me it's got to either be a pulled calf muscle or a pulled hamstring or something that is torn that he is fighting through, and he's probably fighting through it because of what happened to him last year.
Well, of course, and I mean, and coming here and having to be the savior and the money that he's making, all of those things, and not wanting to give up. But yeah, we had heard about a knee banged up. We'd heard about an ankle banged up. It wouldn't surprise me if there was some muscle in there. You're probably right about whether a hamstring or a calf. It looks like that. I mean, it looks like he just doesn't have any power there. And it makes a lot of sense why the ball's not going down the field if he can't use his lower body to get that into his throws. So, yeah, I mean, it's just and this is what happens when you bring in an old guy like that. He got hurt now twice, it seems like. So it's just going to be, I just wonder, does it get worse from here? I mean, what are the players thinking right now? You fire the coach, you fire the general manager, you know there's going to be a new regime. Be shocked if Aaron Rodgers came back at this point. There's no way I think that they're going to want him back. So that could get like a messy divorce like you had with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, and I don't necessarily know that he'll do, I don't know. He's a wild card, and they're on a bye. So I don't think he has his McAfee show this week or anything. So I don't know how he's going to react to it. And then there's also a leak that, supposedly Woody wanted to bench him after the Bronco game.
Yeah, so a couple things on that. So this was the Athletic Report with Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt. So you mentioned how Woody Johnson says the best roster we've had in 25 years. So in this article, right, it says the line about roster talent was presumably an endorsement of the work Douglas had done over the past few years, but multiple sources within the organization viewed it as more of an endorsement of the roster that Johnson felt that he had built. And prior to that line, it was talked about how Woody Johnson looks at social media, sees what people think the Jets should be doing, and then goes out and gets those guys, and how it was Woody Johnson who had pushed for Tyron Smith more than Joe Douglas wanted him, and Joe Douglas was reluctant to bring him in because there wasn't a single other team, including the Dallas Cowboys, that wanted him back, and here he is giving up more sacks than anybody and then getting hurt. He didn't really love the idea of bringing in Mike Williams, and Mike Williams comes in here, and we know how that worked out. So it's a lot, and Woody went all in, and part of the fan base has to appreciate the fact that he went for it, and they all that money that we talked about that had to be in escrow, they had to pay Aaron Rodgers to get here, and all of those things, and then it didn't work, and he's blown the thing up. It's just that this article right here and some of the things that it said that were happening to Joe Douglas, even prior to this regular season with the stuff we knew about, firing Rob Saleh without consulting him, getting the Hassan Reddick deal done when Joe Douglas didn't want it to go that way. There was things that he was doing prior to that. Good luck finding a general manager that's got any self-respect coming in here to try to run this team.
Well, that's the way it feels right now. There's no question about that. But it is one of 32 jobs, and somebody will want it. Maybe, hopefully, somebody that has some sort of experiences at this, as opposed to somebody that's an assistant to a successful GM somewhere else, because that team has a quarterback. You know what I mean? You got to get somebody in here that's going to win the lottery one of these years. And I think that Joe Douglas and Mike McCagnon and a number of these guys have had opportunities to pick their quarterbacks, and unfortunately it didn't work when they were here. And those guys went on to have some sort of success, once they left here, whether it be Geno Smith or whether it be Sam Darnold. And Mark Sanchez really didn't. But I mean, they've had their opportunities and it hasn't worked out. Now, the interesting thing will be the reaction of Aaron Rodgers, because anybody who was involved in bringing him here, with the exception of the owners, is gone. They're gone. And if he's endorsing
Nate Hackett and Jaime are still there.
Well, right. Yeah, but Jaime was here before that.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. To me, it's just another. First of all, I would say this: if Joe Douglas was lame duck, which he was, and he was getting his, as you said, legs cut out from underneath him in many of these different discussions, then it's probably better off that he's gone. It's better off for him. It's better off for the Jets. There's nothing worse than walking around like on eggshells and everybody knowing that eventually you are going to be removed from your position. You have no more power within the organization. So what's the sense of having you walk around in the building anymore?
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it does make sense that Woody would do something like this. And it also gets them, somewhat of a head start on everybody else, trying to find the right combination of GM and head coach. Maybe he has that in his mind already. I don't know. He puts Phil Savage in as an interim general manager. That interim general manager has to run the team, has to go through all the different transactions that happen on a daily basis, has to be the conduit to the league office, and still has to take phone calls from other GMs around the league and other owners around the league, if in fact that's a viable activity for him, depending on what Woody has told Phil Savage. He's a respected guy within the league. He knows what he's doing, but he's I'm sure, going to be a part of, I would think, looking ahead as to who the next GM is going to be.
Yeah, and the big headline that came out of the Athletic article was the thing about benching Aaron Rodgers. I don't actually think – I could see that whole thing where they have a meeting after the Bronco game, and Nate Hackett's in there, Rob Sala's in there, Joe Douglas is in there, Jeff Ulbrich is in there, Woody is in there, Christopher's in there, and Woody Johnson saying something like, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is so bad, should we go to Tyrod Taylor? And then coach is going, what are you, nuts? Like that, and that happening. That actually wouldn't surprise me, him being so angry, suggesting that.
Yeah, but if Woody said, look, man, the guy is hurt.
Well, that would be different,
That could be the precursor of the actual discussion.
Right. So that's the big headline. But I think there's way more important things in this article that should be headlined and just shows you when Joe Douglas lost control and from Woody Johnson. Now, none of Joe Douglas's fault, by the way. It was when Woody Johnson decided to take the entire power of the organization. So this is according to The Athletic, Zach Rosenblatt and Diana Rossini. It said Douglas had already lost some power midway through last season when Johnson took a more active role. Example, Douglas had a contract extension offer he was getting ready to propose to defensive end Bryce Huff's agent, but Johnson vetoed that and other moves involving paying new money to players on the roster. By January, Douglas seemed to have even less control. That's when Johnson fired assistant general manager Rex Hogan, a move that shocked many in the organization because of how close Douglas and Hogan and their families were. Multiple team sources theorized that Johnson forced Douglas's hand. In the aftermath, Douglas told Jet staffers, Woody should just fire me now. That's in January.
Yeah.
All right? So, like, that right there, to me, that's the headline. In the fact that Woody Johnson took so much control of this organization and was taking the power away from his general manager way before this season started going south. And that's the issue. I mean, and I heard Al and Jerry discussing this morning on the warm-up show, and Al couldn't understand why so many fans, were screaming at Woody Johnson. I think the answer to that is the fact that, nothing during Woody Johnson's tenure outside of the Rex Ryan couple of years has gone well. So it's one thing after another, and he hired these guys and didn't let them do their job. Yes. And he came in and he started meddling, and now what that does is give you the worst candidates in the world that probably wouldn't take any other job in the league just to take this job so they could say they're a general manager and go, you know what, I could deal with it. I'll deal with Woody Johnson. Yeah, sure. Like this guy, Chiefs assistant GM, Mike Borgonzi. He'll be Borgonzi in 2 years if he comes here. Trust me, you got no shot. None. And Brian Costello's got all these assistant GMs and all these people all over the league. It's like, sorry, it ain't going to work out, especially if this guy's that involved.
Yeah, it's amazing that you can get rid of the coach, you can get rid of the GM.
You can change the practice facility.
No, I'm not going into that way. All I'm saying is that you're not going to get rid of the owner. It's, they serve at the owner's pleasure because the owner pays them a lot of money. And if the owner is going to get personally involved and make all these decisions, then those guys really don't have jobs.
Yeah,
right. they're just placeholders, and they're there placating the owner, making those decisions. And it wasn't and I think we all thought when Jim Dolan was running the Knicks and getting involved with all the different controversies and the coaches and the hires and doing all these things, he just kept going down the wrong road, getting bad information from whoever was, recommending these particular people. Like the Phil Jackson hire is to me is one of the biggest disasters I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until now that Jim has stepped away and allowed Leon Rose to run this team that the team is currently constituted the way it is right now. We all believe it's going to be a good team.
Which is what he did with the Rangers all those years.
Many years ago with Glenn Sather. He let Glenn Sather run the team.
And that's why they had more success.
Right. And even Ranger fans say, Glenn Sather did this. I'll tell you what, this franchise has always been competitive. They won again last night on the road, and still people aren't happy for whatever reason because the expectations are sometimes through the roof. But I will say, that once Jim Dolan divorced himself from all of that nonsense and did what he was doing with the Sphere and doing all the, the real estate deals that he does, managing the Garden, all those things, and he let the people come in and do their jobs for their respective franchises, they've been really very successful collectively now over the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
And, until Woody Johnson understands that, it's never going to change. They'll have a little bit of success here or there. I don't know who he's going to hire as his head coach now, but any head coach that comes in here, especially if it is a coordinator type that has never been a head coach before, does he know how to fight for the things that head coaches want to fight for?
Yeah, I mean, and the GM is going to be the first thing you would imagine. That's generally how these things go. You hire the GM, and then the GM hires a coach. But, we have talked many times about how there has to be a big personality head coach that it will be the face of the organization that has experience. And, is the assistant GM for whoever the hell that Brian Costello's got here I'll just throw out another name, is Ed Dodds, the Colts assistant GM, going to be the guy that comes in here and then stiff arms Woody Johnson and then has the guts to hire John Gruden, who's going to be the most powerful man in that building? Probably not. Ed Dodds is going to hire some special teams coordinator from somewhere so then he could be the cock of the walk in the building. So, I mean, if there's one thing, if Woody Johnson listens to us and listens to social media and listens to all of those things, this is the thing he's got to hear, is that you have to get a head coach, not Rex Ryan himself, but like that. That's who you need. Experience, and Rex didn't have head coaching experience at the time, but experience preferable and a big personality to be the face of the organization. You can't go down the assistant GM and the assistant coach or the coordinator route with this franchise again. And if you do, you gotta divorce yourself and let those guys do their job and just go away for a while.
He may be initially forced to divorce himself if, in fact, Donald Trump does put him back into the ambassadorship of Great Britain. So that only time will tell us that, and that probably is not going to happen for at least a couple months. And this is maybe one of the reasons why Woody wants to do this right now. But I do, if you've basically cut the legs out from underneath your GM the last couple of years, you've basically just released Joe Douglas, and it's probably, while I'm sure it's disappointing for Joe, I would imagine that it's also relieving.
Oh, yeah. And they basically, another part of that article was like there were people in the building that felt like Joe Douglas was being held hostage because he had no job, no power, he's just walking around sad every day, and they finally just let him go, and he'll end up on his feet for sure. He's well respected. He'll be working for another organization. Maybe he'll get another opportunity as a GM. And maybe to play devil's advocate for a second, because I don't agree with what I'm about to say. Maybe Woody Johnson in January and then throughout this year was like, I gave you your chance, and you drafted Zach Wilson, and you did this, and you brought in Mekhi Becton, and this didn't work, and that didn't work, and Hassan Reddick isn't signed. You traded for him, and now we don't have him. And, maybe he just was, by January, said, I gave you your shot to turn this organization around. You weren't able to do it. Now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to take credit if this team is going to be good this year.
Yeah, I just feel like, all of this for us and probably for a lot of people that have covered the Jets, whether it be Connor Hughes or Diana Rossini or anybody, we're not in those meetings. We're not in, I don't know exactly what is being said between the owner and the general manager, the owner and the head coach. I have no idea what's being said. I have no idea. Woody said he called Aaron Rodgers, when they got back from London just to see how he was doing because he thought he got hurt in that game.
Yeah.
And then the next day, Rob Saleh was fired. So, I don't know how many of these reports are truly 100% accurate. I do believe that there's something to it, especially when a person gets fired. If they do have contacts within the media world, they will give they'll give their opinions off the record and then let the people who are either doing the writing or doing the talking like us, put it in our own words and try to figure out exactly what's going on. I purposely did not call Joe Douglas yesterday. I did not want to get involved in getting a guy that is off the rebound and trying to explain away what happened here. Because I know what the explanations are going to be. Because they're always the same with every general manager, with every coach, that they didn't get the support that they needed or they had too much of a meddling coming from ownership. And this is one of the things that Bill Belichick has basically pointed out time and again with the New York Jets.
Yeah, and he is not afraid to say it now, and he certainly didn't when he was the head coach of the Patriots. He was thinking it, but he has come out many, many times, a member of the media, and just said, well, the Jets are going to jet, and this is the Jets, and Woody's going to be Woody, so this is what happens. All right, Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.